Okay, my name is Dea Ginina. You can call me Dea. Currently, I am the Vice President of Finance and Governance of AIESEC Indonesia at 11 and 12. Now I'm applying for MCVP LC Development and then Student Market Director as the second preference in AIESEC Egypt for 12-13. So now, just to share information before I told you about my motivation applying for MCEB in Egypt. Before, I was applying for MCP in AIESEC Indonesia, but I was failed. And I don't think that I have to stop now because I do really have the eagerness to take higher role as well and still contribute, because when I was first applying as a member in AIESEC LC Bandung, actually 2015 is really the thing that I'm really looking for in AIESEC. So I really want to be the part of 12-13 and then I want to contribute more related to the execution of 2015 as well. So now why I'm applying as MCVP LCD as my first preference, it's because based on my passion, which my passion is about education and how I develop others through the strategical and then education itself. And then as well, I see that in LCD area, I see in AIESEC Egypt still needs very much development inside it, so that all LCs can be waken up and then show their biggest strength towards the performance of to boost up the performance in AIESEC Egypt. So my vision for AIESEC Egypt 12-13 is to make AIESEC Egypt to be the best of all youth practices. And why is that? Because I always believe that AIESEC Egypt especially can be the most relevant example that is executed by the youth. Because let's say like this, we are going to make all the three wheels work. For example, like first choice partner and then global youth voice and then the positive impact. Imagine that AIESEC Egypt can be the best case of all youth practices. All people, global youth voice is not going to be that big problem. Because if you want to make all people do the same thing like we did, we have to make such addiction. And how you're going to make that addiction is to show that actually what we do is actually the right thing to do, and then that is the most efficient and effective way to give positive impact to the society. Once we're making the addiction, then the viral activities or viral conditions is going to be happening. About my AIESEC experience, how can my AIESEC experience contribute to my vision for AIESEC Egypt? Is that the most relevant one is that I've been there as LCEB in AIESEC LC Bandung. So at that time, I'm having the experience of how I'm gonna think cross-functionally and then make sure that every step that I do is actually contributing to all functional. So I have no problem in making any steps that will contribute to all functionals, and then I get used to have a very good risk-based management. So that's why I'm really being a preventive person for every decision that I take. So for those, I believe that I can create such a system that can make a very good internal health for AIESEC Egypt, and that is really relevant for my application, which is being an MCVP of LC development. Because I have the capability in how I'm going to make all the strategy to make the performance getting better, and at the same time, I'm going to contribute more into how we are going to make all LCs having a very good internal health in every entities. And then the second one is now beside as Vice President of Finance and Governance of AIESEC Indonesia, and being an internal auditor is just very outstanding for me, because in doing the audit, it is not only that I audit financial statements, but as well I audit all operational that exists in all LCs. So imagine there are 7 functional in one LCs, and I audit 5 different LCs which have 5 different cultures, and I also give consultancy for the LCs related to the problems that is existing in the entities itself. And I hope that my experience can contribute more into my vision in making AIESEC Egypt to be the best case practice of all youth practice.
Yeah.
So, related to my strategy, I'm going to focus more. So, by seeing these problems, actually, I already explained in the booklet about my strategies that actually it consists of more or less 8 strategies, which the first is that development model. What I'm going to be focusing on into the development model is that how we are going to create a simple and an understandable system from each LCs for all LCs. I I know that the name is not really selling, but the second strategy is that LC and functional coaching system, in which from this strategy, I'm gonna focus how we're going to create a system of problem solving, of defining problems, defining next activity and next steps, not only based on the functional, but LC as a whole. So if there is a problem from GCDP, how can the other functionals going to contribute in that area? And then education virtual, because previously I can see that one of the need for the LC development is that the education for all LCs, and then conferences, and then functional coaching, functional coaching by the MCVPs, probably not enough to develop all LCs. So that's why we have to create more additional pipeline for the education for the LCs, and one of them is educational virtual. Just like what happens in the previous GST, that we are going to create such a system, virtual system, in which we're going to have a class. No, we're going to have classes for different cases and then themes, and then we are going to develop sustainably the LCs towards that virtual class, which is the education virtual. And then the fourth is that the LC buddy. As I said, from the problem we are lack of LC collaboration. From LC buddy strategy, we are going to increase the contribution of each LC towards the problem of the other LCs. By having, so for example, there is one LC which is like in GCDP area, and then there is one LC which is really good in GCDP area, so that they're gonna be buddy. So there will be a culture in which every LC has the feeling to develop the other LCs as well. So operational audit, that before I already explained about my experience being internal auditor, and it is really effective and for the assurance of the implementation, good implementation and quality system in ISAC, so that I'm gonna have this good case practice as well to be implemented in ISAC Egypt, because by having operational audit, you will see every little problem that related to all functionals, and then as well in one LC as a whole. And by having that, the LC coach or the auditor can give a relevant consultancy related to how they're going to develop the LC by solving the lackness that is found in the operational audit. By having these four focus, hopefully LCD area for 12-13 is going to be developed very well. So those are all my strategies.